put the spotlight on some of the other big stories that deserve our attention. The Mizoram-Assam border dispute continues to escalate. The latest bone of contention is this very rare, bizarre travel advisory that's been issued by the Assam government, to put it mildly. A day after Assam advised its people not to travel to Mizoram, calling it unsafe, the Mizoram Chief Minister Zoramthanga tweeted and even spoke to Mirror Now, saying that Northeast will remain united, but some of the steps being taken by Assam are not okay. In fact, he went on to say that border issues need to be resolved amicably and that we urge the central government to step in amid the pandemic, and that people are making a mockery of the Shillong region. Lame excuses, he said, lame excuses are being made by the Assam government. Now, while the Mizoram government does have the option of going to court over this, they have not decided to do so yet. They are continuing to seek the central government's intervention into this matter. And why are they doing that? Because the matter isn't calming down. The situation isn't improving at all. In fact, a little before we spoke to the Chief Minister of Mizoram, the Chief Minister of Assam, Himanta Biswa Sarma, issued a clarification and then denied imposing any kind of travel curbs. He said that we don't have a restriction on travel, which is true. They just have an advisory to their own people, advisory against going to Mizoram, saying that in Mizoram people are armed with weapons and so it is not safe. And obviously when such advisories are issued, tension continues. In another significant development, remember the MP from Mizoram who made these inflammatory comments about how they had pushed back and fired back because the Assam police began firing, and this time there were only few casualties. Next time they're going to kill them all. So the Assam police went packing off to Delhi to question this MP. Now they've even put up notice outside his home summoning him to present himself in this specific case. Let's try and understand what is going on, what's the ground reality. Sushanta Talukdar, senior journalist, joins me right now. Thanks so much, Sushanta, for joining us here on Mirror Now. Can you give us an update on how things are developing on ground, at least in that entire area where the border dispute broke out?
As you have said in the beginning, that the situation hasn't de-escalated. I mean, there was a meeting convened by the Indian Home Secretary, and then meeting reached a resolution that the things should be mutually discussed, and then central armed paramilitary forces should be deployed in as a neutral force along the Assam-Mizoram boundary. And so there has been no incident, but then it has been established now that the problem has gone beyond the discussion at the bureaucratic level. Because this whatever decision was arrived at, some arbitrary actions on the part of the Assam government, particularly as you have mentioned about the travel advisory. I mean, normally when such situation occurs, both the states we have seen in past similar incidents in case of Assam, Nagaland, or maybe in Assam, Arunachal, or maybe on the Assam, Meghalaya, even with Assam-Mizoram boundary dispute and the skirmishes. Then what they do, the states try to both the states try to take up some confidence building measures so that the situation do not escalate. Now the travel advisory means that there are attacks inside Mizoram, so I'm not safe to go. Nothing of the sort has happened. There was only conflict clash between at the boundary and also between the two police forces. And secondly, the order issued by the Assam government that all vehicles coming from Mizoram into Assam and the entire Assam-Mizoram border boundary would be searched and checked thoroughly for drugs, because the Assam police says that recently they had achieved success in seizing and arresting drug peddlers, drug dealers, and also seize a huge quantity of drugs. And they say that Mizoram could be one of the roots of this. So they said that they have issued the order, and they said every single vehicle coming to Assam from Mizoram would be checked on the entire Assam-Mizoram boundary. So what does it? What signal does it send? It sends across the signal that every single vehicle are to be suspected to be carrying drugs. So, I mean, nobody will question stopping any car or any vehicle that they have a prior information or they have suspicion that that particular drug peddler or drug dealer might be using that vehicle to smuggle in drugs. So what this has led to, this has also led to a counter allegation, and then Mizoram also issuing a statement that condemning the Assam government move. Right. He said over the past 10 years, vehicles, the people coming from Assam into Mizoram were caught with drugs, and 395 cases were registered. Around 300 people were arrested. So what we have seen is that the set of arbitrary measures, even after the meeting at the bureaucratic level in Delhi, to diffuse or de-escalate the situation, the situation on ground is not pointing us that the peace has been restored. The tension is still there. So I believe this, until and unless the political leadership of both the states meet across the table to be in a meeting convened by the central government at the level of the Prime Minister or at the level of the Indian Home Minister, whatever decisions are arrived at the bureaucratic level, that has failed to diffuse or de-escalate the situation.
Yes, Mr. Talukdar, in fact, you're absolutely right. And I don't think decisions at a bureaucratic level or even, a DGP to DGP level across the border are going to be, resolving this situation. It would need a higher level intervention and conversations at the Chief Minister, Home Minister level. But there are also many claims that the Mizoram government at this point is making that the, blockades or bands and every other, reaction by the Assam government is choking their supplies. Now, to what extent is that true or happening on ground?
No, it's true. I mean, the blockade and blockade by some people from on Assam side, and also the destruction of railhead connecting Mizoram that has been destroyed. So this is why when it continues, it's going to supplies. But then I understand, I got the information that Mizoram has managed to get FCI supplies through Tripura and Manipur. So that probably we will keep the supply lines on. But then it is not supposed to be. I mean, the immediate the concern is about the protection of life of the people, and that too at this stage when the region is still gripped by the prolonged wave of the second wave of COVID-19. So when the states needed to coordinate with each other so that the people are not in trouble. So the situation should be de-escalated, and the confidence building measures must include that no kinds of the blockade or economic disruption of supplies to Mizoram continues, and if it continues, then it is only going to add more fuel to the fire. And we had in the past had bitter incidents of similar in boundary situation. Like in 2014, the clash occurred in which 9 civilians were killed and 8 were injured on Assam-Nagaland boundary. Then, on the sidelines of a meeting of the Northeast Chief Ministers convened by the donor, in Assam and then Assam Chief Minister Tarun Gogoi, and then Assam Nagaland Chief Minister T.R. Jelian, they met they met, and then Mr. Kiren Rijiju, he was Minister of State for Home. He was also present, and then both the sides agreed to take a host of measures so the situation cools down, and then they can take up whatever dispute, boundary dispute that across the table, or because it is pending before the Supreme Court, and then so mutually agree to maintain the status quo.
Right.
So even in last year also we have seen the situation. There was a flare up in the situation on Assam-Mizoram boundary, and then Assam Chief Minister Sarvananda Sonowal, who is currently Union Minister, and the Mizoram Chief Minister Joram Thanga. We saw them on the Twitter, Joram Thanga thanking Mr. Sonowal for taking steps to lift blockade enforced by some people against Mizoram over the boundary skirmish. So normally the situation when the clashes occur, and then the violence takes place along the interstate boundary, and so both the states and their mercenaries are engaged with each other so that it doesn't escalate.
You know, I think what we have seen, and you're right, the last time, even in October, when things went a little out of control, we very quickly saw both states pull back and talk to each other and work with each other. This time, though, neither of the two sides and neither of the two chief ministers, I must say, seem to be in a mood to be doing that. And the centre's larger silence is only worsening this, with the two chief ministers saying what they want, issuing the kind of advisories that want, which is obviously not good for people on ground at all. Mr. Talukdar, I'm completely out of time, but thank you so much. I really appreciate you joining us with all your views and insights, and of course, giving us an update on what's happened there. So that's as far as the situation in Assam versus Mizoram is concerned. It doesn't look like the situation will ease off by itself unless there is intervention by the central government and an intent to really find a long-term solution to various border disputes that the state of Assam has.